Philip, nice to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
I'm actually really excited for our chat today because you're a bit of an inspiration for me. You're a successful bootstrap founder. That's really quite an achievement. So you were a management consultant before working with some big names in telecommunication, entertainment, and now you're the CEO of Fratch. Now, Fratch, for those who don't know, is an AI-powered recruitment assistant that helps companies to find high-quality freelancers and interim managers. Tell me about how the transition has been from management consultant to HR tech CEO.
Well, it has been a long journey, to be honest. My first job was basically at Telefonica, where I worked in strategy consulting. So that was my first relation, like with consulting and external consultants. From there on, I went into tech first, and then as a venture associate at a really big investment firm for startups. And after that, I basically went into management consulting again after a year, and which was quite interesting for me and eye-opening because I didn't know freelancing before. We had our core team always, but we also always brought in freelancers to help us on certain projects and certain topics. I did this for roughly 5 years, and then actually I tried to found my first company, which unfortunately failed. And then I said, okay, what are you doing after you failed your first company? You're going like, okay, I go back to something which I kind of know to settle yourself and to lay out your next moves. And you know how it is. I actually started freelancing, and that lasted almost like 4 to 5 years. And during this 4 to 5 years, I worked with a lot of different companies, but I also worked with a lot of different intermediaries, agencies, and recruiting firms.
Mm-hmm.
After 5 years of freelancing and working with all these different intermediaries, I was like, well, the system seems to be a little bit broken. There's something there to reinvent the whole system. And I always compare it a little bit to the mobility industry where, we had cabs, we had taxis. So you had a way to come from A to B. But nevertheless, someone like Uber or Lyft came along and basically offered you the same product, which is bringing you from A to B, but with a way better pricing, way better quality, and way better customer service, right? And my thinking was, hey, we have this really traditional system of freelance recruiting and intermediaries, but let's build the Uber out of it. Let's build the Lyft out of it. So let's build the new version of intermediaries and recruiting agencies. And that's how we came along with Fratch.
So you've been a freelancer, so you know how hard it is to actually also get connected. And I think it's a pain point on both sides of the system. I've seen that in working in HR, we needed freelancers for the business, and it's like, where do you find them? And the name Fratch, I mean, it's kind of cool actually. And how did you come up with Fratch? What does it mean?
Yeah, so when I came up with the first prototype for Fratch, obviously we wanted to bring the freelancer app in the App Store, and we basically had the first prototype built. Everything was ready to go, except the name, to be honest. You did not want it to have something like PT Consulting or anything like that. It wanted to show something really new, fresh. And yeah, basically took us, I think, 1 or 2 months to come up with a name. And then, how it is, some people get it under the shower. I was hiking. And then at some point I was like, we're matching freelancers. So freelancer match. And that's how it came along.
Oh, so it's freelancer and match.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was thinking fractional, but that makes way more sense. Freelancer and match together. I just had my light bulb moment. So I know, at least I've seen this a lot, that companies are choosing to hire workforce differently. So they're not going to traditional hiring. Of course, there will always be that, but they're also now looking beyond that to, these options like freelancers, like fractional experts. There's a lot of benefits to that, obviously, but it is something new. What are you seeing in terms of this trend?
Well, I think we are seeing basically two major trends at the moment. The one is obviously the demographic change in countries like Germany, but basically whole Europe, even Asia and the US. And that is basically that a majority of the workforce is leaving the labor market. So over the next couple of years, we're going to have a really difficult problem that we cannot place all the open positions with permanent employees. If you try to solve this problem, basically one solution is to give more flexibility in the labor market, especially if we're talking about the German one, because German, are very, by nature, very settled, but also the contractual frameworks here are very difficult to get people out of a job employment quickly. So we see that with the demographic change, it becomes more and more important for organizations to get flexible talent on board, because what we already see in statistics is that the average hiring time for a permanent position is 154 days.
It's long.
Keep that in mind. You have like, a critical topic or, a critical position, and it's open for almost like 6 months. So obviously you need to have a solution in place which gives you more speed, which gives you more advantages to go to market faster. So that, I think, is the one trend where we see freelancers really emerging. The second one I think is super interesting as well, is that when we're looking at the past, like, when I started working in consulting and we hired freelancers were always this kind of persons which were like, let's call it very seasoned, very experienced. They had like, 20, 25 years of job experience within a large corporate. What we're seeing now, and what we're seeing in terms of what kind of freelancers are signing up on our platform, freelancers are becoming way younger. For example, we have people on our platform, which have like 5 to 10 years of work experience, worked at very successful companies, all these tech companies where you could have all the benefits and perks you want to have, like, your own chef, your gym, picking up your dirty clothes, whatsoever. But nevertheless, these people say, hey, I do not want to be in this construct or in this setup of a normal company. I want to have more freedom. I want to, have more change in my work, more regular change. So that's why I'm going into freelancing, right? And when we're coming back, these two trends really play together, right? Because on the one hand, you have a lot of people leaving the labor market, which is already very difficult. But then the people which remain, a subset of that decides that they want to have another working construct, right? Or they want to have another setup. So I think it becomes really important for companies to have, I would call it an operating system or something similar, to get freelancers quickly, cheaply, efficiently, and with a high quality on board. And that's what we're trying to do with Fretch.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? These trends that are coming up in this space. It really does go to show that you do need a diversified talent strategy. You can't just rely on your job post and, inbound, job applicants. And we all know that process is pretty broken as well. I mean, like you said, 154 days,
Yeah.
getting someone in the door is also a bit crazy, right? Especially when we know businesses are needing to move fast. They need talent now. They don't need talent in 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it, right? I mean, let's assume you want to implement, topics within your company. So what has changed over the past 6 months in terms of technology and, what is available and what possibilities you have? The options have changed drastically. So if you haven't done anything for like 6 months, you're missing out on the progress which you can have. I think that is something very important to consider. The other
Absolutely.
topic which you mentioned, I think, is like extending your hiring strategy. I think that is something which we also see, right? 20% of our freelancers are actually interested in joining or could imagine joining a company full time. This channel, or the sourcing channel of freelancers, from my perspective, is completely unutilized at the moment, right? Because you actually have a very, very valid channel, because freelancers are very good at joining a company quickly and getting into topics very quickly, right? So when you have an open position, you can fill it with a freelancer. These people are very talented in getting to know the problems very quickly, getting operationally effective very quickly. And then if you decide, hey, it's a good match, you can make them a really great offer, right? And at the same time, you have like kind of this notice period already, out of the way. But I mean, if it does not work out, ideally, you can still continue your search, right? So you're not losing anything. You're actually making progress on the operational level. But at the same time, you have an additional option to fill the position full time. A lot of progress on the operational side. So
Yeah.
it's basically a win-win-win.
And maybe one final thought. What is different about Fratch? Because there's other tools that do this, What is different about how you're doing it?
Yeah. So when we started in 2022, we said, look, at the end, what the customer wants is like quickly getting a high quality freelancer for a great rate, right? So, and if we roll the dice and find the right freelancer, or if we do it manually by manpower, or if we use an AI algorithm, is basically completely like the customer does not really care, right? Because he wants the outcome. So he wants the good result. However, what we're seeing is leveraging technology gives you basically the best outcome, right? And that's why we said, okay, let's build an intermediary from the ground up, but let's build it as a technology company, not as a classic intermediary. And what we thought doing that is when you're looking at a classic intermediary or platform, they're working very manually, right? So there's an account manager who calls the client who says like, hey, do you have a project or do you want to freelance or anything like that? Oh, you want one? Oh, what's the job description? Let's figure it out. And then there's a bunch of email ping pong back and forth and calls to just align the job description or project description. The account manager gets the job description, gives that to a staffing manager in-house. The staffing manager tries to understand it correctly. He goes through a whole database of, potential CVs, and then, the staffing managers have their subset database where they find people. This whole process is not only very lengthy, it's you're not getting the best quality because, imagine every intermediary says, hey, we have like 10,000 freelancers or more, but as like with manual work, how do you want to go through all of them, right? And even if you can do that, it costs you a lot of money because obviously recruiters and intermediaries need to pay these people, and these people are not getting cheaper, right? Also, they are suffering from the demographics. So that's why we said, okay, let's build it up from the ground up. Let's set up an algorithm which takes into consideration like 50,000 skills and assesses what is really needed in a project description and what skills does a freelancer have. And among other factors like daily rate or something like this, we are matching basically the best freelancer with the project description automatically. So that is basically what we started with at the core. But on top of that, I started out with, this account manager who tries to, provide the right job description for you, right? So we will build basically a specialized ChatGPT agent where you can say, hey, I need a product owner for an e-commerce company based in Cologne, can be 80% remote, and you can put it in exactly like I just said it. And you put it in our system, we provide you with an 80% valid job description, basically. You can adjust that. But the really interesting thing is that we're taking this job description and immediately showing the best 3 profiles for this role, which are immediately ready to interview. Imagine this whole chain, which I explained just to you, we're narrowing that down to just a couple of seconds, and therewith, obviously, we are lowering the cost drastically and increasing the quality.
Wow, it's pretty cool. I've lived that experience trying to find people, like I've said. So if I could have just gone into Fratch and said, I needed this, and it pops up the 2, 3 best matches based on even just that, voice kind of summary, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it
That
gives
does
you so much
save so much
more
time.
extra time, but also even if you say, hey, I want to try another provider, or I want to benchmark that, it gives you so much information which you can hand over to your procurement department, to your HR department, or to the other service provider by saying, hey, look, this is the job description. These are like 3 sample profiles which I really like already, and give me some other options as well.
Yeah.
So I think it gives you so much more speed. And let's face it, right? It's when you're looking for a freelancer, you're always in a stressful situation. It's never like everything is super smooth, and easy. Let's also be realistic on that. It's not like you're sitting on your couch and you're shopping for shoes and, it's kind of leisure time browsing through several profiles or anything like this. Work which nobody really likes to select the right person, right? In the first time. That's why we want to make it way, way easier for people to find the right profiles fast and then really focus on these 2 or 3 profiles in detail. Because when I see it on LinkedIn sometimes right now, you're writing out a position, you're getting like 100 applicants, browsing through all of them is a nightmare, right? But you
Yes.
want to do as a hiring manager or recruiter is like having 3 profiles and go really into depth with them to understand really their profile in detail. Is it really a fit to my role? Do I like the personality? And we
Yeah.
want to enable people to spend time on this, not on telling.
Screening thousands of CVs.
Exactly.
Well, and that's what AI is good at. It's good at
Exactly.
analyzing loads of data and being like, based on what we know, here's a good match. And then it gives you that, first pass. And, it's always easier working from a first pass than starting from, we all know that no one likes doing a presentation from zero. They like to edit someone else's. So, that's why that's where I think AI can really be interesting for HR. And I think this use of AI we're going to see it more and more. Okay, so that was a wonderful chat. I think it was incredibly helpful for the audience. And thank you so much for joining me, Philip. And if you would like to find out more about Fratch, you can find them in our stacked HR tech database.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.